Welcome to the Personal Network Assessment. Now, we've all known for some time that networks make a big difference in people's success, but for many of us, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You don't know what's behind the curtain and what's influencing somebody's success over time until you can peel back layers and see who they're connected to and how they're getting influence in ways that extend their careers and performance in an organization. The Personal Network Assessment is a way of looking at your own connectivity and thinking about to what degree does it replicate what we've learned about high performers over the past 5 or 6 years through the consortia at the University of Virginia. Now, traditionally, self-help books on networks focus on going out and building big mammoth Rolodexes. The idea being that we just go find people that know a lot of people, follow them around for a couple of months, and copy down what they do in going to meetings, taking a lot of calls, shaking hands, surface-level behaviors. What we found and focused on for about a 5 or 6 year period is that's not actually what high performers do. What seems to distinguish the top 20% performers across a wide range of organizations now is not so much a big network. In fact, there's usually a statistically significant negative likelihood of being a top performer and knowing a lot of people. What we find high performers do is they tend to manage networks in 4 ways. 1, they fight off insularity and build more bridging ties outside the organization into other subgroups. Our work shows this promotes the likelihood of people being in the top 20% performance category. Work since the 70s shows that people that do that better are promoted more rapidly than their peer groups. They find more jobs more easily when they lose their own. They're paid more. All sorts of performance benefits come from not just managing a big network, but using connections in ways that extend abilities and drive innovation towards the person. Number 2, we find that they tend to manage ties across organizational lines. They tend to be much more likely to have a balance of ties across functional lines, a balance of ties across hierarchical levels, and then a balance of kinds of benefits they're getting from other people in their network, ranging from information, political support, a sense of purpose in their work, a range of very specific things that we know promote effectiveness and satisfaction at work over time. Number 3, they're using their network in a way that extends their abilities. They're not falling into that trap that a lot of us fall subject to, where we tend to want to talk to people that know the same things we do. Those interactions feel comfortable and validating, but they don't help us extend in productive ways over time. And number 4, the high performers are not engaging in behaviors that build big surface-level networks that are just there when you have an opportunity to take to other people. Rather, they tend to invest well and build high-quality ties that actually bring opportunities, resources, ideas to that person on a voluntary basis over time. And we find that when you take a view of networks in this way, you focus not on what do people that know a lot of people do, but what are the high performers doing, you're actually able to open that curtain to see the Wizard of Oz and get a sense of how and where do I need to invest in ways that will help me extend my abilities productively. So the Personal Network Assessment tends to be used across a wide range of applications and organizations where getting a sense of that asset that exists around people can be helpful in applications ranging from onboarding people more rapidly and shrinking that time it typically takes people to get productive, facilitating retention and engagement. We know people that don't get stuck on the fringe of the network but are able to migrate in quickly are much more likely to stay and be productive in an organization. Career development programs, leadership development, and even basic performance management applications in organizations. You can think of yourself and the basic idea that if you could replicate what the top 20% performers were doing through their networks, if you could replicate that in your role, you'd gravitate to that idea very quickly as a way to extend your own abilities, finding ways to both decrease time in certain spheres in your network and build out in others. And so what the Personal Network Assessment will do is for about a 15-minute bit of your time on taking a diagnostic, we'll deliver back to you a personalized website that's going to give you insight on your connections on these 4 dimensions that we've found fairly consistently matter for performance across all layers of an organization. You'll get both an electronic website that you can work through and build an action plan around, as well as a paper-based report that people may take into career planning discussions, into leadership development programs, or other things like that. The 4 components of it: first, it'll give you a network diagram that allows you to see to what degree do the core contacts around me all interact and potentially be creating insularity in my network. And it's very interactive. It gives you a chance to potentially pull certain relationships up and see if you're overly influenced by a given sphere here. It gives you a chance to compare yourself in terms of the size of your network or the redundancy of the ties built in against other peer groups or high performers in your organization. So it allows you to see to what degree is insularity breeding around you, and how might you think about decreasing time investments in certain kinds of relationships and building out in others. Number two, it gives you a chance to see to what degree is my network welded across organizational lines well. And so we tend to find that in general having a balance of these ties across functional lines, hierarchical level, and kinds of benefit is important to maintaining a productive network over time. This view allows you to see where am I potentially overly influenced in those spheres at the top of the blue bars, and then where am I potentially under-influenced, and if so, if you see points in your network where you have too many or too few ties, you have the opportunity to create action plans around that and think about where do I need to decrease time, where do I need to invest in ways that will help me extend my abilities. Number three, it also allows you to overlay your network against core developmental goals you may have or projects you have planned for the coming year, just to get a sense of the degree to which your network is either extending your abilities and helping you supplement gaps in your own expertise that always happens as leaders are rising and taking on broader responsibilities, or it happens as high potentials are coming into the workforce and trying to figure out how to get things done. This gives you a view of the degree to which you either need to invest in certain ways to extend your own abilities or find ways to become a little bit less reliant on people that may have too much of your ear and be too influential across a range of kinds of knowledge and expertise. And then fourth and finally, it'll give you a diagnostic to see how and where are you engaging in those behaviors that don't just build big networks but create networks that are energized and that are bringing opportunities to you. And as you see here, you have the ability to self-rate on those behaviors as well as the option to input those people that you'd most like to hear from and get feedback on, so you have a sense of both where you think you're doing well or have opportunities for improvement, as well as a sense of where there are significant gaps between what you think you're doing and what your peers think you're doing. So what we can do with a personal network assessment is give you some fairly targeted insights back into the way your network is either extending your abilities or potentially trapping you in unproductive patterns. Now, what we'll ask for is a group of the 12 to 15 people that you're most reliant on for information, decisions, who influences your thinking on a day-to-day basis the most. We all know, of course, that you know more than 12 to 15 people, and that's not your entire network. But we find if we can get that core set of people that you're most reliant on, whether they come from inside your team, outside your team, but inside the organization, or even outside the organization altogether, if we can get those core sets of people, we can get a sense of the asset that you rely on and the ways in which it's either becoming overly insular or it helps you to extend in productive patterns over time. So the one thing we ask for you as you take this next step into the assessment is to take the time to think very carefully about the names of people you enter. Spend time on that, and we can promise you that we'll come back with different ways of seeing how and where you're either getting leverage out of the people around you or potentially falling into traps where certain spheres are too influential or insularity is breeding around you that will over time decrease your creative abilities and start to derail careers. Thank you very much.